First off, yeah, I do believe that the world as we've known it is going to change drastically.
Hmm.
I'm in that camp, if you will, originally just because of mathematics, the logic of it. I mean, we live in a financial system that mathematically cannot continue on the same path. We're in the exponential geometric phase of debt creation, and the financial world certainly can't survive without new debt, and the real world cannot function without credit. And that's where we're headed, is a credit crack.
Precious metals broker Bill Holter has joined the throng of expert analysts and prominent investors who have been warning people to take action before it's too late. According to Holter, a widespread global collapse is imminent. It will sweep away everything in its path when it hits, causing untold hardships to investors who fail to prepare in the very little time left. In a recent densely packed interview with Resource Talks, Holter discusses the early signs of the collapse, the endgame, and how investors must prepare to avoid losing everything. The best form of preparation is taking your money and sustenance completely out of the system, and in this case, out of the hurricane's path. According to Holter, the global financial system has always been unsustainable because it is built on the premise of printing money out of thin air. Regardless of warnings issued decades ago, we've allowed this travesty of a system to play out for so long. And now there's so much leverage in the system that we couldn't possibly pay it all back even in thousands of years. As a result, financial experts like Bill are certain that we are quickly heading for a widespread collapse that will devastate billions of people and bring an immediate end to the world as we know it today. According to the renowned financial expert, there will be no winners in the impending collapse as everyone will lose something one way or the other. However, he is certain that people who prepare now by investing in tangible assets like precious metals and taking their wealth out of the system will now be as completely devastated as those who still believe in the imagined strength and indomitability of the current financial system. If you want to be properly informed and prepared for this huge global financial crisis and reset, ensure you watch this video to the end, subscribe to the channel, and turn on post notifications for more videos. You can also drop your comments and observations in the comments section below. Thanks, and enjoy the video.
By moving into or issuing short-term credit as opposed to long-term debt and locking the rates in, the Treasury made a huge mistake a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago. They should have, for their benefit, not the investors' benefit, but they should have issued long-term securities and locked those rates in. They didn't do that. So now the sliding scale of the amount of, or the interest rate that the Treasury has to pay has increased dramatically along with higher interest rates. And now the U.S. Treasury is paying over $1 trillion per year, soon to be $1.5 trillion, and then $2 trillion, and then it just keeps going and going. You can't have that. Spending over $1 trillion a year on interest is more than what the U.S. government spends on defense. And the U.S. defense spending is larger than all defense spending for the rest of the world. So again, it's a mathematical certainty that this cannot go on for 5, 10, 20 years. No, I think any day that you wake up now, you can see a financial meltdown. There were big problems in the Treasury market last week. You saw gold and silver move strongly higher. On Thursday, gold made a all-time monthly high on the chart. It made an all-time weekly high on the chart, and it made an all-time daily high on the chart. So gold was at all-time highs on Friday. We had a big spike on Sunday night. The shorts, the cabal, whatever you want to call it. Real physical gold was not sold Sunday night. Real physical gold was not sold yesterday, Monday, and it's not being sold today. Yet the gold price is down $150, $120 in that time span. They had to suppress gold because if gold was 2,300 or 2,500 right now, you would have a full-blown financial panic on your hands. And the reason you'd have a financial panic is because that then calls into question the value or veracity of U.S. dollars and U.S. Treasury bonds. In order for the US government to be able to continue to borrow, they are having a harder time. I mean, foreigners are not buying treasuries, they're selling treasuries. So you're not getting that uptake anymore. The bottom line is we're headed to a point in time where the trust in the US Treasury is going to break. And my entire lifetime, and certainly yours, US Treasuries have been looked at as the risk-free asset on the planet. Really, the only risk-free asset. They've been, the Treasury's been downgraded. It's certainly, you certainly could see a default one way or the other of either non-payment or just blowing the money supply to the moon and destroying the dollar and paying back at, pick a number, 10 cents on the dollar in purchasing power. There's going to be a delineation between treasuries as a risk-free asset and gold and silver as risk-free assets. And gold and silver are God's money. They cannot default. They cannot be debased. They can be diluted, and that's what you see every time you see a waterfall event where all of a sudden you get, in a day's time, you get 9 months of global gold production sold in 24 hours. Yeah, they can dilute it with paper, but they cannot bankrupt gold. And in the end, the paper is what's worthless, not the gold.
During the interview, Bill moves to a particularly popular topic among precious metals investors: the intentional and well-planned suppression of precious metals prices. As Bill has explained, gold prices have tried to break out several times in the past year alone, only for the rally to be cut short under very suspicious circumstances. The most recent upside rally that took the precious metal to an all-time high of $2,150 is a great example of this. And it's not just gold. Silver prices are also being suppressed even much more than the gold market because it is a much smaller market. Bill believes the end of this suppression is quite close and that it will happen as soon as central banks have accumulated enough gold and silver to sustain themselves through the collapse. When that happens, the financial expert believes gold and silver prices will be revalued, and both assets will assume their true values. Let's get back to the video.
Do you believe that there is suppression or manipulation of gold, of silver, of all commodities, of all stocks, of all bonds? Do you believe that we live in a free and fair and open market, or are markets managed? First off, understand that traders at JP Morgan or Goldman Sachs or whatever firm, they are not the brains behind the operation. They're not the ones who have they have a financial reason to do it because they get bigger bonuses.
Yeah.
Well, when I say they, I'm talking about central banks, I'm talking about sovereign treasuries, and I'm talking about the BIS itself, which is the head of all central banks. In order to keep their paper Ponzi scheme alive and going, and I guess you could say trusted, they have to prove to people that things such as gold, silver, wheat, oil, you name it, things are bad, paper is good. And we live in a world now where government is taking more and more control over everyone's lives. I mean, before the call, we were talking about the guy from New Zealand who got arrested for dumping raw data. And, you told me that in Europe, you couldn't go to the store, you couldn't go to the gym, you couldn't do this, you couldn't do that unless you had a vaccine card. That's the government taking your world over. That's the government's forcing you to do something that you wouldn't do on your own. So understand that when I say they, I'm talking about the powers that be, the money interests, the central banks, the sovereign treasuries, the BIS, which is over and above all central banks. They have a vested reason to push the price of gold down because that supports the currencies that they issue.
Could they ever switch and be manipulating it on the other side, like manipulating it higher?
At some point after this whole thing collapses, I mean, you've seen central banks buying massive amounts of gold over the last few years. In particular, you've seen China and Russia purchase massive amounts of gold. Do I think those that have the gold would want to manipulate it higher? Yeah, of course, because if you own something, you want it to go higher. And they've been filling their coffers with gold with the knowledge that the Western system is going to collapse and they're going to be left with massive black holes of nothingness on their balance sheet once the debt defaults. So yeah, at some point in time, 3 months, 6 months, a year, is it 2 years, 5 years after the collapse where you see the central banks and the sovereign treasuries that own large hoards of gold, will they push or try to push the price higher? Yeah, I can envision that. I mean, why wouldn't they?
When you're talking about gold, silver as being always being sort of its little leveraged brother, if you will, do you still expect that to be the case?
Well, the ratio right now is what, 82, 83 to 1?
Mm.
The price ratio, it takes 82 ounces of silver to buy 1 ounce of gold. It basically comes out of the ground at 10, 11 to 1. So that's God's ratio, and man's ratio is 82 to 1. And I know which one I believe is correct and which one's not correct.
These experts have been repeating this important warning for years, if not decades. Gold and silver are two of the very few assets that have no counterparty risks. And if there is any moment you want to avoid counterparty risk, it is right now. The United States is 130% in debt. Banks are heading for another huge blowout, and the entire economic situation is as precarious as it gets. Please share your thoughts on Bill Holter's interview. Do you agree that we are quite close to the end of it all? Please drop your comments and observations below. Hit the like button and subscribe for more videos. Thanks for watching.